back to Pagitt Radio. It's a little band called The Head and the Heart. The hipsters are into it, and it's one of my running songs. Sometimes I shut my eyes and act like I'm at a church service or something during that song.
You do not, Doug.
No, I don't. But I do like the little circusy sound of that bit. Philip Clayton is a part of the conversation that's been going on a week from Tuesday out at Claremont School of Theology in California, and you can find it at the link on the Facebook page for Doug Pagitt Radio and at emergentvillage.com. And it's a theological conversation where practitioners and theologians come together to mix it up a bit and talk about this idea of process theology. And as Philip has suggested, process theology is not just a different set of conclusions, it's really a different way of approaching the theological enterprise.
Hey, Dr. Clayton, I've had a question that's been kind of bothering me for some time. I was just curious, is your manfro, is that natural, or do you have that done? You know, you go to a salon or something like that?
No, I just got, when I was a kid, I so wished I could have straight hair, and like all the cool kids had straight hair that were cut with like a bowl over their head, and I had this like crazy Peter Frampton kind of haircut.
Yeah, it's awesome.
You know, I was always embarrassed by it, but nothing I could do.
Well, when I was a teenager, I watched Greg Brady have that kind of hairdo.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
I thought, man, I totally want that.
I'll bet his wasn't natural, though, I'm guessing.
I think it wasn't. And there was one brief period, I don't know if other people experienced this, one brief period when I was about 18 or 19, I think there was a hormone kick in. My hair went curly for about a year. In fact,
I'm still waiting for mine to go straight, but does that say something about hormones?
I don't know. Yeah, maybe you're still an 18-year-old boy somewhere deep in that body of yours.
You got it.
I think that explains a lot.
Explains my theology.
How unprocessed theology would that be, though, right?
Right. You just sort of stuck where you are.
Exactly.
Philip, one of the things that's been interesting to me is when I did theological school and went to seminary and got a master's degree and all this stuff back in the late 80s, early 90s, and I was hearing about process theology then, and I went to a school where they would talk about it in sort of dangerous terms, right? They would say, like, there are these people who think these things, and that's where I heard the name John Whitehead, one of the original articulators of a 20th century version of this conversation. And I like to put it that way because I think it's actually more what religious people have been, Christian people have been doing for 2,000 years is what I would now refer to as process theology. But,
exactly.
But anyway, I heard that name John Whitehead and read some books, but they were all kind of critique books. And what I was struck by, and I know you've been struck by this as well, is that in certain church environments, these ideas have caught on, but they really haven't become a part of the popular movement of religious thought in our country. And it seems to me that it should, because it seems so fitting for the way that people think about religion and spirituality in the world that we live in kind of a postmodern dynamic understanding of ourselves and culture and thought. It's almost like there's something built into this process theology experience of the last 50 or 70 years that is restricting it from being catchy. Like, how come it hasn't gone viral? What's up with that?
I know. I've talked to reporters a lot, and they say, about 3 questions on process theology, and I know I don't want to run the story. Because what people do is they take this technical vocabulary, and the way, like skeptical vocabulary, it's almost like they're saying, if you can memorize this new lingo, and you can talk about God with these 26 terms, then you've got a new orthodoxy. And I'm saying, well, why do we want a new orthodoxy? I thought process would be about loosening up a little bit.
Yes.
So I keep telling people I'm not a card-carrying process theologian, if that's what that means. But here's an idea I want to float and see how it goes on your show. I want to think of it this way. A lot of reform movements do something radically new with the church practices, with their understanding of Christianity, with their understanding of what a pastor is, of what community is. Really cool experimental stuff. And then what's the theology behind it? Well, they got the same old, same old. They don't touch, the static God, the really more God than human Jesus, the hierarchical church. It's all stuck in an old theology with new trappings, old wine and new wineskins. On the other hand, you get people with a really new, exciting theology, like this guy Alfred North Whitehead, who launches this new program in theology. John Cobb follows it up. It's got these really cool manifestations. And then what do? They sit in old-style churches with some dude giving a 30-minute boring sermon, and you're going, wait a minute. If that's what it points to, I'm not interested. Why can't we get the two together? Radically new ways of being church and radically new ways of understanding the God of Jesus.
Yeah.
So okay, you've been at this for a long time. What's your answer to why? Why not? Like, why hasn't that happened, right? Like, how come you can't take this? I'm just going to use a very bad analogy. How come you can't take this great software and put it inside of great hardware so that people can access it? How come, like, what is it about this that makes it so difficult for us to find this combination where there's communities that are open and creative and fun and engaging in solving the world's problems that are funded by this notion of God's constant engagement with all things of creation?
Maybe it's because the power hierarchies don't want to let the old beliefs and the old power structures go. Yeah. Maybe it's because it's easier to write a theology book than it is to transform a community of people. But what I really think it is that those who become activists in new forms of worship and community that just break outside all the boxes, they're activists. And, they don't have time to sit down and read 26 books before they go out there. They're with people 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they're making a difference in people's lives. And it just took us a long time, like decades more than it should have. But, Doug, I'm going to say I think we're there now. I think that the people with the traditional theologies and the traditional churches are finding fewer and fewer folks as interested anymore.
Well, let me throw this one in the mix and see if this might be a part of it. Maybe it's the notion, and you've brought it up a couple of times, that what process is just swapping out one orthodoxy for another, and that many of the most creative practitioners who don't want to be part of a system don't even want to be part of one that's called the new orthodoxy of of process theology. Like, people often say to me, "Are you a process theologian?" Or "You sound like John Whitehead," or "You sound like you sound like these people." And I'll just sort of joke and say, "Well, they're just early Pagittians, right? Like, they're just early versions of what I was making up too." Like trying to say, "Hey, you don't have to feel like you fit into a stream. Rather, you can say that, like your friends, you say, yeah, we have a lot in common. We should hang out with each other." Is a different way, rather than saying, are you part of that school of thinking? And I wonder if maybe that's a part of it, that there's something in the kind of creative
Doug,
edge.
It happens over and over again. It's so such a pattern that this great sociologist, Max Weber, coined a name for it called institutionalizing charisma. To get a charismatic new leader, religious leader, theological leader, whatever, with exciting new idea. And what does the second generation come along and do? They write a systematic theology about it.
Yeah.
So by the 50s and 60s and 70s, folks were writing systematic theologies of God is always in process and no one can ever capture it, and it's like wide open and crazy. Okay, I got it. It's 12 propositions, number one. So we had to go through that phase, and I have a friend in a emergent community who says, we have one rule here: nobody gets to capture the flag. Nobody gets to own who we are. And once we begin to practice that, not the process theologian, not the old-style conservative theologian, it's all of us speaking our experience fresh every Sunday, every time we're together.
Hey, that's Philip Clayton. He's going to be one of the hosts of a conversation going on at Claremont School of Theology out in Southern California a week from Tuesday. Come and join us if you can, or follow along online. You can find a link at Doug Pagitt Radio on Facebook. Philip, thanks so much for being on the program. We'll see you in a week.
Thanks for having me, Doug.
Right on. Hey, stick with us, folks. We'll be back here after the break.